coming up, right? So it was a nice experience. So the new exposure draft will come up in, hopefully before the end of this year. This thing is going crazy again. And in January 2020, Antarctica from ISP will come to NBS to explain to us whatever the new exposure draft talks about, okay? So hopefully we will keep current about everything that is going on. So what is my conclusion, okay? I told you in the beginning the conclusion was, should I turn it off? There we go. I told in the beginning that the answer to my question was, it depends, right? So there we are. Now you see why it depends. It depends on a lot of factors, right? It depends on which country you are, how publicly visible the firm is, how much the firm is worried about the analyst consensus, how well organized is the corporate governance, how much are they willing to let's say, pay in terms of performance for executive compensation associated with these measures, because they are also used for executive compensation. So it depends on a lot of things, right? And should you kind of trust and believe these measures? Well, yes, if they provide you with enough information that you can backtrack, look at the adjustments, and make your own mind if you think that that adjustment is in fact something non-recurrent. Because if you think that adjustment is going to come up every quarter, there are firms that, for example, just for depreciation, come on, they're going to have depreciation every quarter. How can they say that is non-recurrent? Right? So if you think that adjustment is not valid, let's say, well, then don't believe it, okay? Now, in the new format, the one with where they change the income statement, if that does go through, right, then the expectation is there was going to be some measures completely defined. They can still tailor-make some, so then we'll be left to wonder how those were calculated and how those were disclosed. Okay? Thank you for your time. Thank you for coming. I'm open for questions. Questions?
Questions? The audience, please.
I kind of feel obliged to ask a question as another one actually answered. So, what I'm interested in knowing is do you think the non-GAAP reporting takes the pressure off improving some of the standards? So one of the adjustments was a goodwill write-offs that have been adjusted, was making quite a big difference and making them negative. And people always think, ignore goodwill write-offs. But does that take off the pressure from amending the standards that require to put all the goodwill on the balance sheet and have it sitting there forever until it gets written off?
Well, that was another thing that Mary also discussed at the AAA. So what is going on with goodwill is that the firms, some firms use it to kind of signal the market that they don't need a goodwill, so they write it off immediately and they say, oh yeah, it's fine. On the other hand, some people think that if you write off goodwill immediately, then it's because you paid too much and you didn't know what you were doing, basically, right? So there's a lot of discrepancy of what is going on when the firms do decide to write off goodwill completely. In terms of putting or removing the pressure from the standard centers, what they believe is that they will continue to improve the standards, right, regardless of whether or not these new numbers come in the income statement. They are now worried about what's going to happen with the leases standard. Yes, so that's their next concern, is what are the firms going to do once they have to put all those leasings into their books, right, and the assets go boom, and then of course the liability also goes boom. So what are they going to do next, right? How are they going to adjust those measures? So that's what they are concerned about now in terms of standards application. See?
Question, please.
So the auditing profession, particularly in the UK, but also in Europe, is in crisis at the moment. With principle-based accounting standards in the EU, are we confident that the auditors can stand up to management so that beneath the numbers, the management can actually manipulate them and get accounts which are audited and true and fair?
These numbers are audited at all. You can say whatever you want, right? So in the US, they are now considering whether or not they should change that. So the PCAOB, which is the, let's say, overseer of auditing in the US, is now done outreach sessions, and they even called me to ask, do you think that this auditor should be responsible for these numbers too? But they have not made any decisions. So far, these numbers do not need to be audited at all. There is anecdotal evidence that the auditors kind of look at it, right? But they don't have to say anything about them in the reports, right? So it's still a kind of a wild west when it comes to auditing these numbers. There's no auditing required.
Thank you for a very, very interesting presentation. So there are clearly inconsistencies across firms on the performance measures they choose to report. I was wondering, within the same firm, whether there are inconsistencies across time. So do they tend to report the same measures year after year, or quarter after quarter? Do they tend to change the calculations?
So there are firms where you see the same measure quarter after quarter, okay? And there are firms that you never see any non-GAAP measure quarter after quarter. But then when you try to put those firms into boxes, let's say a specific pattern kind of thing, most firms do not fall into a specific box, right? So they will come out this quarter and say, and we have this amazing adjusted earnings per share, and next quarter there is no adjusted earnings per share, which is one of the concerns of the ISB, right? Because if you cannot compare it across quarters, then what are they going to do about the measures, okay? So, no, I killed it and it still makes sense. Okay, so the concern is, so the problem there is, if they come up with a measure this quarter, they don't come up with a measure the next quarter, but maybe in 3 quarters they come up with a measure again. Should we compare that measure to the one that was disclosed 3 quarters ago? Is it even comparable? And what they found at the beginning was that no, it wasn't, right? They made completely different changes in the adjustments they made. So the ISB wants to kind of step it and say, no, you will come up with a formula, even if it's a very kind of broad formula. But we want you to keep that formula. And the ESMA also wants that. They want the firms to come up with some formula of what they believe are their measure of adjusted earnings, but keep it up so that people can compare it, right? And even if there are no adjustments made, that would just mean that in some quarters the non-GAAP measure is equal to the GAAP measure, period, right? They want that. Yes.
Any more
So
questions?
two questions. So to justify me, you asked why afterwards.
Make it good.
So one question is, does literature, all these findings apply to national accounting? So all this business in the European Union and discretion in how they create numbers in Eurostat, is there any links between these two literates and how they report cash flows and discretion that countries show?
So you mean the government's account?
Yeah.
I have no clue. And there's no paper about it. So you may be onto something, but I never looked into the government accounts to see whether or not they have measures other than the ones according to the standards.
Another one is related to dividends. So if we say that managers are allowed to have discretion in calculating profits and adjusting for the numbers, why aren't they fully free to do whatever with dividends? So they can keep dividends this or that. And you have this signaling hypothesis in this business.
Yeah, they can.
But at the end of the number, they can fudge things there. So
Yeah, they can decide what to do with dividends, right? That's completely up to them, right? But the thing is here, the perspective is always they calculate the number according to GAAP. And then, of course, if they have the free cash flow or if they have a past experience of dividends, they will kind of be forced to pay dividends. But they may decide not to include that at all in their calculation, right? So, or they can even say that they are going to attribute dividends based on this alternative measure of performance, right? So just like they can say that they are going to give executive compensation based on this alternative measure of performance. And there are debt contracts also based on these alternative measures of performance. So they can use it basically wherever they want, right? And it has been used in different scenarios. So there's no regulation on that. But sometimes national regulation intervenes. So for example, in Portugal, you have profits according to GAAP, 50% goes to dividends, no questions asked, right? So then there's no flexibility, let's say, right? So then again, it will depend on the institutional setting.
Okay. Yes. Hi, thank you for the presentation, very interesting. I mean, these adjusted performance measures tend to have an impact on financial markets, investors' present and potential. What about the other users of financial information? How are they impacted? How are they protected? Evidence from research on this?
So are you talking about professional users or unsophisticated users?
The ones that are less financially literate.
The unsophisticated, yeah, those are the ones that usually react badly. Not badly, they react too much, too positively to these disclosures, right? So they don't have the critical sense to think, what is this measure, or how was it calculated, or go look for a reconciliation or an explanation or something, and they just take it at face value, okay? So those are the ones that tend to be misled. They overshoot, they overreact to all these disclosures. Because the sophisticated ones, so the analysts and the fund managers and all of that, they tend to go and dig up the information. Although when I was in the panel last year, the guy from the bank was saying, no, you don't understand, I only have a few minutes to process each press release that comes out of a firm, and I want this to be perfectly clear what they did. And of course, some of these press releases have 50 and 100 pages. It's not going to take a few minutes to process all of that. He can, unless there's a formula. That's why he wants the formula in. But the unsophisticated investors, they don't even know that that number doesn't really represent performance as usually understood.
So do you think that the ISB will try and protect this?
Yes, all the regulations, guidelines, recommendations that came out, in the introduction, they always say, and we want to make sure that the investors are not misled. And there's always a discussion about the unsophisticated investors. Yeah.
Thank you. Any more questions? Please.
This is a very vague comment and question. As a scientist, well, occasionally has to look at accounts. My impression is that the main function of business accounts has been to obscure rather than to make more clear the situation, and that what you are really saying is that the system of smoke and mirrors is merely moving to different smoke and different mirrors, but that there is just a movement of pressure, but still the main objective is to cover up rather than to make clear.
No, let me rephrase that in a nicer way. So, it is true that some of these disclosures are potentially misleading, okay? It is true that a lot of these disclosures transform losses into profits and seem wonderful, right? But it is also true that overall these disclosures do contain information useful for capital markets. So, you cannot just take it for granted. So that's the only thing that you cannot do. So if, like the unsophisticated investor, you look at the number and you think, aha, that was their performance, then you're doomed, okay? So you really have to see if there are smoke and mirrors around the number, right? You cannot just take it for granted. So the beginning point of the discussion when this literature came about was, are they informative or are they misleading? And no one could come to a conclusion because every paper shows evidence of this is when they are informative and this is when they are misleading. So yes, you have to worry about how it comes packaged and how it was calculated, basically. Those are the two things you always have to look at.
Please, at the back.
Thank you very much for the presentation. It was actually excellent. Can I just ask, has anyone ever considered or ever done a legal challenge to the misleading disclosures?
Oh yeah. You want to know what?
And how did that go?
Yeah. So the first firm that the SEC concerning misleading non-GAAP disclosures was Trump hotels and casinos. Yes, right a year after the regulation came out, immediately, right? So it was what unbelievable. Of course, now don't hear that example anymore. You now hear the most recent examples, but that was the very first one. So what has been going on right now is that every time that the SEC finds cases where they think the disclosures are misleading, they write them a letter, they make them go back, redo the calculations, issue a new press release. Okay? Of course, the initial reaction of the unsophisticated investors is gone. They already reacted badly, so not according to what they should have reacted. But yes, the SEC is on top of it in the US. The problem here in Europe, like I mentioned, is that ESMA came up with the guidelines, but then they said, okay, and we're not going to oversee the application of these guidelines. Each country now has to go and check what they want to do, right? Pass it on to their national setting of laws and control what is going on. And there hasn't been any action on that front. Okay.
Thank you very much. I'd like to give the vote of thanks. So my name is Paul Dobson. I'm head of Norwich Business School. And it's important to remember our history, Anna, because as my accounting colleagues like to remind me, Norwich Business School was founded on teaching accounting. And the accounting and finance degree was our first degree, and we evolved to become a business school. And it's really important that we still lead in that research that you're providing and your colleagues are providing. We as a business school like to boast that we are advocates of responsible business. I think you've given it a wonderful illustration of the challenges for businesses to be responsible in how they report information. It sounds a simple question. How is the company performing? Yet what you've illustrated this evening is very difficult to discern always through all the noise just exactly how is the company performing compared to its competitors and other companies maybe in the sector. If you said that there is opportunities, there is always new inventions, and as a business school we love to encourage innovation, but not when it misleads. We prefer to encourage innovations that inform, and as one of the questions highlighted, not always are people that use this information sophisticated users. There is always the challenge to present information to the uninformed, the uninitiated, or even people who are semi-professional to present to them accurate information. It is a challenge. It is the responsibility of the authorities to regulate this and monitor this. But what you've shown so far is that there is, shall we say, a regulation opportunity out there. I'm sure your work that you are undertaking and will continue to do will help inform the authorities, and perhaps you won't get into so many arguments in the future that they might just actually sit down and listen to what you have to say. Thank you so much for giving us this wonderful, informative talk, and also being a flag bearer for responsible business advocacy in Norwich Business School. Thank you, everybody. Can we show our appreciation once more? Thank you. I also have the delight to tell you that there is a reception upstairs where there will be served drinks, soft drinks, and hopefully some very fine wine for our colleagues, and some nibbles to go with it. Please may join us, and thank you again for coming this evening. Thank you, everyone.